Good day to everyone. I am Samir and I will be your moderator for today's webinar. On behalf of Bero, I would like to welcome you all to the webinar on water scarcity and its impact on procurement from Bero Insights. In today's webinar, we will have our speakers discuss and help us understand the magnitude of water scarcity and what do organizations need to implement to tackle water shortage. Before we move ahead with the presentation, I have some general set of instructions as always. Number 1, please note all the attendees will be placed on mute. Number 2, during the course of presentation, if you would like to post questions, you will find a box on the right-hand side of your screen indicated in red on the slide. Request you type your question and hit the send button. As and when the presentation progresses, I will note down the high-frequency questions and will pose it to the presenter at the end of the session. If you are experiencing any connections issues, request you to close the window, go back to the email, and try to connect using the same link. If there are further problems, request you to please email Puneet at puneet.ramal@bero-inc.com. That's puneet.ramal@bero-inc.com, which you can also find in the email. Moving on, let me quickly introduce the speaker for today, Shrikant Pingali. Shrikant is a food and beverages expert at Bero. He specializes in providing agro-commodity related procurement intelligence to Fortune 500 companies. At Bero, Shrikant has built extensive knowledge in categories including dairy, edible oils, flavors, and fragrances, among others. Shrikant's insights on procurement enable service organizations spread across industries to take rational procurement decisions. Let me now pass it on to the presenter.
Thank you, Samir. Good day, everyone, and a warm welcome to this webinar. The world is hurtling towards acute water scarcity. The freshwater resources are fast depleting at a time when water demand is going up. Water scarcity will begin to affect many industries, especially the ones which are operating out of water-stressed regions. However, industry players haven't yet began a coordinated effort to tackle this looming crisis, mainly because it hasn't come to bite them yet. With this context in mind, let us now look at the agenda for this webinar. We will start with the most spoken questions among all business circles that rely on water. Why is water scarcity imminent? What will happen to industries that rely on water? How can the scarcity issue be addressed? Who will be benefited from this? Through this webinar, we would like to tell everyone that all businesses that rely on water need to get a move on, especially because the demand for water resources is increasing and it is faster than the ponds and lakes can refill. Let's look at the demand outlook in more detail. All of us know that our daily needs, right from the food we eat to the dress we wear, requires water in some form or the other. On average, a single pint of beer requires about 20 gallons of water. A 2-liter bottle of water requires 132 gallons, and an average family of 4 requires about 5,000 gallons of water for their day's goods. This being said, you can imagine the huge requirement of water every day at a global scale. Where are we heading with this demand? What are the factors that are driving this demand? We can all think of the most obvious demand factors that are causing the growing water demand globally. And these obvious demands can never be ignored. Growing population is one most important factor which drives the demand behind every single drop of water in the planet. The exponential population growth, mainly from developing countries, is also driving the growth for urbanization. And thus, we see an obvious growth in agriculture. Hey, we all have to eat, don't we? Now, this rapid growth is not just due to domestic consumption, but also with the growing international food trade and the policies that aid it, meaning additional pressure on the water reserves. Last but definitely not the least is the growing usage of water to produce energy. We all can agree that there is a strong competition between food and energy for the existing water resources. Let's see if there is any driving factors that support the supply. Growing industrialization is affecting the water quality, converting few of the existing water reserves into unusable marshlands. Moreover, weather plays a fiddle across all countries, with drought and water scarcity impairing critical needs of agriculture and allied industries. Above all, human actions such as inefficient water management and wasting the water supplies due to lack of knowledge also result in limited supply. In short, this causes in demand outweighing the supply. If you look at the estimates by the 2030 Water Resources Group, we can see that the demand for water is increasing steadily, and it is poised to increase by about 2% CAGR from 4,500 billion cubic meters to about 6,900 billion cubic meters. To put it in relative context, how do you think this will alter our current demand and supply scenario? In the next 15 years, we would require 40% more water supplies to satisfy the growing demand. Strong demand can be expected from developing countries such as India, China, and South America. The water resources are not equally distributed around the globe. About 60% of global water reserves are concentrated only in 10 countries. With the demand pressure mounting, many regions are being termed to be under water stress. In this world map, you can see that the countries marked in dark red are under extremely high water stress. That is, the domestic water resources are insufficient to meet the internal demand. Most countries are already in high water stress zones and will move towards very high stress zones if the demand trend continues in the absence of proactive measures. All of these things point to only one thing. Industries have yet to come up with an optimal solution to tackle the looming water scarcity. But hang on, why is this taking so long? Is there no solution for this? Any tool that can help us identify the amount of water consumed at each stage of the supply chain so that you can target that particular layer and reduce your consumption would be helpful. And for this, the concept of water footprinting comes very handy to control the water consumption of any business. Some of you may ask, what is water footprinting? It is the total volume of water used to produce the goods and services consumed by the industry. To illustrate water footprint with an example, we can take the average supply chain of a brewery. We will tell you why we have considered the example of brewery very shortly. Now, you could say that there are a lot of companies that are estimating their water footprint. You'd be right in saying so. But what they're in fact doing is estimating the water that is consumed only in their factories. This would be their operational water footprint. However, the supply chain water footprint of any business is accounting all of the water that goes into the producing of agricultural raw materials like barley and hops, water used in the making of malt from barley, water that goes into the beer, Water used to make packaging materials like bottles, caps, crates, etc. Water that is consumed in transportation till the time the beer bottle reaches the shelf itself. It is important to focus on proactive measures at each stage of the supply chain to ensure water footprint reduction. Ceres, a non-profit organization that advocates sustainable business practices, has benchmarked 100 companies on their water footprint activities, and the results of the top 10 companies are tabulated as following. In this matrix, we can see that eminent beverage makers and breweries have tried to estimate their operational water footprint, and many seem to be doing a good job. But look at the right side of the matrix. It will show you that only very few companies actually made an effort to see what their supply chain water footprint is. What do you think is the reason for such low supply chain water footprinting? The water experts at the Water Footprint Network in Netherlands have to say that there is immense difficulty in collecting the water's consumption data of all the suppliers of any business, which in itself is one of the key hurdles that affects the basic fundamentals of supply chain water footprinting. Not only that, we all know that any business doesn't operate with one supplier, but has many suppliers operating in many regions. In most cases, the suppliers are contracted and not consistent. This increases the level of complexity in estimating the supply chain water footprint. These reasons may justify why many companies have made little progress in estimating the supply chain water footprint. Just because estimating the water footprint for entire supply chain is difficult, it does not mean we can ignore it, can we? Now, let us look at the example of water footprinting through a case study. How select industries commence preemptive measures in water footprinting. For this case study, we have taken the sample of a brewery industry in South Africa. But why breweries in specific? Let me explain. Brewery is one such industry that has the highest consumption of water across the supply chain. And in their defense, brewery industry has already identified the need for water footprint estimation and reduction. Many breweries have in fact estimated their operational water footprint and have also achieved efficient results in certain locations. Now comes the question of why we have chosen South Africa in particular. South Africa has one of the highest water charges in the globe, with 1.91 US dollars for every cubic meter of water. And the country is already under a very high water stress zone. Despite these water-related drawbacks, South Africa is also the home for multiple brewery plants belonging to the top 4 global beer brands. At this point, I would like to reiterate that the brewery industry is merely selected to illustrate the concept of water footprint. The principles of water footprint reduction that are discussed in this case study are applicable for all industries. All the brewery locations of the top 4 global beer brands are plotted in this world map. And you can see that there is quite a lot of concentration in Europe and even in South Africa. Now let's compare this with the water stress map that I showed you earlier. You can see that South Africa is in a high water stress region, and so are other developing countries that have breweries. With this in mind, let's jump into the details about water consumption in a South African beer. On average, the total water footprint of a brewery in South Africa amounts to 6,586 cubic meters of water. We can chart this water footprint by category, and we will be able to see that the consumption at each stage. You can also witness that a whopping 42% of water is consumed at the production stage of the supply chain in South Africa. If you dial it down, a typical South African brewery consumes about 5.9 cubic meters of water to produce 1 cubic meter of beer, whereas the global standard ranges between 4.3 to about 4.7 cubic meters of water, which is nearly 25% lower. That is a staggering difference in the water consumption. I mean, it should take the same amount of water to make beer in Cape Town as it does in San Francisco or Singapore. Well, the answer is no. There is always a difference in water consumption pattern for the same industry located in different regions. One important factor is obviously the water availability in that region. Throughout the study, we have not yet looked into the cost aspects, which are also important. If you see the share of cost of goods sold, aka COGS of a brewery, they seem to be spending more on packaging and almost equal portions for raw materials and production. Now, if you associate the cost of these sections, we will see that the brewery will spend more for water used in raw materials and beer production. But how does this pan out for South Africa? The demand for water is not going to decline in the future. Our estimates show that the water price can increase as much as 12% by 2030 in South Africa, which implies high costs for breweries or any other industry for that matter. To tackle this issue, it is very important that you estimate the water footprint of your business and look at ways of reducing your water footprint one stage at a time. I will now show you what the major companies in the food and beverage industries are doing in order to reduce their water footprinting. SAB Miller, the number 2 beer maker in the world, commenced a reduction of their operational water footprint since 2008 and has achieved impressive results. SAB Miller has targeted 3 specific brewery locations in water-stressed regions and has achieved 7% efficiency improvement in Peru and a whopping 11% in Tanzania. Also, if you notice, SAB Miller's South African plant has achieved 8% efficiency improvement, and the water footprint per cubic meter of beer in South Africa is almost well within the global standard levels at 4.1 cubic meters per cubic meter of beer. Coca-Cola, on the other hand, has collaborated with the World Wildlife Fund, WWF, to make a lot of changes in their water consumption patterns for all brands. Between 2004 and 2012, Coca-Cola has achieved 21.4% improvement in its water footprint efficiency. And Coca-Cola is planning to increase this to 25% efficiency in the future. Nestle has established its water program by which the company wants to educate its supply chain players on water footprint efficiency. Nestle is a steward for water footprinting activities, and through this initiative, the company has achieved 33% reduction in its water withdrawals and 48.5% reduction in its water discharges since 2005. With the concepts of water footprinting well established and its partial practice gaining momentum, we will now see the need for water footprinting in procurement. Estimating and reducing your water footprint has benefits for both manufacturers and suppliers equally in the supply chain. There are cost savings associated with the decreased water consumption for both. By practicing supply chain water footprinting, manufacturers can identify a like-minded supplier. And when the supplier implements water footprint reduction, he or could be the preferred supplier for all manufacturers. What more? If water footprint reduction is successfully implemented, then this means that the business is well equipped to take up challenges in the future and water scarcity that can pose threats to the raw material supplies. Last, but definitely not the least, is practicing water footprint will add a green and sustainable tag to your product, giving sustainability appeal to the consumers. This in itself has the potential to establish branding of the product. Let's now look at the risk implications that lie ahead in the absence of water footprint reduction. Assuming a status quo situation, there will definitely be a shortage of water supply in the supply chain, leading to absence of water for manufacturing raw materials or products. This is nothing but a physical risk to the overall supplies, which will be the most serious of all. Situations of inconsistent supplies will then lead to additional costs in the form of higher water and manufacturing costs. This can translate into higher packaging and even logistic costs as water is needed at every stage of the supply chain. Thus, the entire business is badly affected. Water shortages may force authorities to become stringent in their measures to ensure regulated water usage. Governments can impose additional duties on water price, which will again add up to your overall cost. Water shortages could lead to unsustainable production methods, which might end up in damaging the public image of the players. Industries are not the only water consumers. There are other domestic communities that need water too. In a water-stressed region, the demand for industries and the domestic consumption will be equal. During such scenarios, it is up to the industry to ensure that the local communities have enough water before the production process consumes the water. An equal sharing of available water resources is very important, for which it is important that the businesses understand their water footprint and make efforts to reduce their water consumption wherever and however possible. All of us are aware of the regulations that have come up into action due to many economic and environmental conflicts and sustainability issues in the production. Conflict diamonds and conflict minerals brought about regulatory actions, after which companies pledged not to source tainted raw materials from Africa. Sustainable palm oil products from Southeast Asia received red certificates, which state that these specific companies cultivate palm plantations only in regulated regions, which in turn will not affect the rich forest lands. Carbon footprint. Most of us never cared about carbon footprint till the regulations came into place and the carbon credits were awarded. Now businesses take special efforts to reduce their carbon footprint. In the same way, there might be a future scenario that will introduce mandates and targets towards practicing water footprinting and generating credits. It is very important that all businesses have to take initiatives in this direction instead of scrambling at the last moment when regulations are in place. At this point, I want to emphasize that water footprinting is not about cutting costs, but it is about preparing for the future. Water footprinting impacts the procurement practices more than we know. Let's now look at how procurement should perceive and approach water footprinting by adapting their principles. Let me begin by asking you a question. Is water footprinting a procurement problem? Should procurement worry about this practice, which on the face of it sounds like an environmental concern? So far, procurement organizations have been measuring their water footprint or their efficiency through a purchase price variance. As we all know, PPV, is an important measure to measure the efficiency of the procurement wing of any organization. A brewery company would be happy if its procurement wing is considered to be successful if they're able to buy a beer bottle for, let's say, $0.02 less than what they paid last year. If category managers view the function of procurement through the prism of PPV, then for sure water footprinting doesn't come across as a genuine procurement problem. However, this is not the desired state. The world does not operate in silos. Along with the price paid, if the category manager also takes in note of what is happening in the supply chain north and south of your current position, then they will be able to develop a holistic view for their respective categories. This is what is category management all about. Category management would require procurement teams to go beyond the PPV and take into account what's happening in adjacent markets. Analyzing the whole supply chain and identifying the water intensive stages thus becomes critical for most businesses. Adoption of category management would help procurement organizations and the companies to implement water footprinting principles across their supply chain. This in turn will enable efficient sourcing of raw materials and pave the way for engaging with sustainable suppliers. Thus, procurement's focus should be towards making water footprinting a mandatory parameter in the future procurement checklist. How should a business implement its supply chain water footprinting into practice? As we have clearly said that it is very difficult. Again, going back to the illustration of a brewery supply chain, combined with the discussion so far on efficient category management, we can see that the raw materials have highest water consumption and the water footprint reduction needs to be addressed immediately. Followed by this, the raw materials for packaging and the utilities that are used in the entire supply chain. Logistics, professional services, and capital expenditure segments have relatively low water consumption and hence can be addressed slowly. For any business, such a roadmap of identifying the most critical water intense sections has to be initially established, followed by corresponding measures of implementation. Moving towards continuous category management and integrated sustainable approach in procurement, water management is the need of the hour. Because we all know that without water, we cannot survive. And water footprint reduction is the way out.
Shrikant, that was an insightful discussion. I now get the importance of water footprinting and the need for its reduction. The case files clearly explain the need for organizations to implement these principles across their entire supply chain. And for this, a continuous category management practice would be ideal. I will now take up the high-frequency questions received during today's webinar. The first question is, how did you arrive at the water footprint for a brewery at South Africa?
Water footprint for a brewery in South Africa was estimated through a tool that we developed. The major hypothesis that we made was that we considered South Africa to be the sourcing region for raw materials, that is barley, hops, and packaging. We also assumed bottles to be the main mode of packaging. We took the country level water price to be at $1.91 per cubic meter. We considered standard production and waste management equipment to be in use at the brewery location. This tool was designed for breweries and can be used to estimate the average water footprint for any specific brewery plant across the globe.
Thank you. We received another question, and that is, What measures are industries implementing in terms of their water management?
Other industries that have high consumption of water include mining, crude oil and natural gas extraction, paper products, and chemical industry. Certain sections of the crude refineries require water-intense technologies which have to be relooked from the basic. However, in the same industry, across the supply chain, there are certain avenues which can be controlled through water footprinting. Mapping these segments and taking proactive measures could help them to reduce the water footprint.
Thank you, Shrikant. It seems we have time to take another question. The question we received is, why do you say that most demand is from developing countries only?
Yes, that is indeed an interesting question. Industrial practices in most developing countries are lagging in terms of their technical advancements. For example, if we compare the textiles industry, a global best company would consume about 100 cubic meters of water for 1 metric ton of cotton, whereas an average company in a developing country like India would consume about 200 to 250 cubic meters of water. Another example would be a paper and pulp mill, where the global best would consume about 50 to 75 cubic meters of water per metric ton of pulp that they are processing, in comparison to about 150 to 200 cubic meters of water consumed by a company in developing countries. Also, we all know that developing countries have the highest water consumption for agriculture. If we consider the bigger picture, developing countries will account for both industrial and agricultural water consumption, and thereby most future demand would be from these developing countries.
Thank you, Shrikant. So that wraps up today's webinar. In case you have any questions, do feel free to email us at puneet.ramal@barrow-inc.com. That's punet.ramal@barrow-inc.com. Once again, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us. Have a nice day. Thank you.